Alright guys, I'm back with a video on a topic that is fairly in the news, fairly hot topic at the moment. It's the one on coronavirus. And what I want to do today is essentially put out there my thoughts on the implication of this coronavirus that it can have, the disruptions that it can bring, and of course, usual topic, if there is something that you can prepare to just be ahead of the curve. Okay. Let's begin by saying what this is not going to be about, and that is a video on just like some sort of zombie apocalypse where you can just barricade in your house, stash ammo, and then just shoot on anything that moves. It's not going to be on this one, although I'm going to comment on the role that weapons can have, just as part of a broad framework of measures that you can do and implement to consolidate your concept of preparation. So, what is coronavirus? Essentially, I'm not any medic by any means. It just seems to be, from what I understand, it is not as deadly as other diseases. However, the thing that is catching people off guard is how fast it spreads and how difficult it is to contain. Okay. The most characteristic thing about the coronavirus is the so-called R naught. So it's a coefficient that determines how a disease, how fast it spreads. It has a numerical value. Everything up of 1 means that one person is gonna pass the virus to more than one person after one period of time. So a coefficient of 5 means after one period of time, one person will pass it to 5 other people, which will pass it each to 5 other people. So therefore you can see an exponential trend of everything above 2, maybe 1, whatever. Plot the curve. They say the coronavirus, some studies are reporting, at the beginning they said something like 2, and now some even confirm figures above 4 up to 6. Okay, so this is crazy. So the infection rate is really high, and what is also very concerning is that medical staff in some countries like Japan is getting contaminated by the virus as well. So people wearing PPE, personal protection equipment, are just getting the virus as well. So it's terribly hard to contain. And this is just the main aspect, okay? Because the implication of this are not that suddenly the whole world population is gonna die, but it's gonna cause some disruption, because the only thing you can do to fight this thing at some point, if you don't have a vaccine, is try to contain it and bring the R naught value down, okay? And this is you do by quarantining people, limiting economic activity, limiting personal freedoms. And in some countries like China, where they used to this sort of top-down management of daily life, it seems to some degree work out, but in some other countries it may not, especially if you take into consideration some personal situation that may lead to people not wanting to comply with such strategies to contain the virus because these personal disruptions are too high. So this for me is the broader challenge that you want to prepare on. The global supply chain are highly interlinked, okay? Just-in-time production, just-in-time management of stock for every good, consumption good and whatnot. So if at some point this thing proves to be a bit too challenging for the Chinese government and the WHO sort of issues some warnings and more country quarantine are applied, people are not going to die from one day to the other, but global supply chains will be affected. So deliveries of food, of medicine, everything that has been outsourced to the East in the past decades will sort of come to a grind, okay? And people, especially in the West, are not used to this, okay? I mean, you go to the supermarket, they had probably, in a couple of days, the shelves are empty. They don't have stocks. Nothing. Today, everything is just in time. You need something, it's sort of ordered, it arrives from China a couple of days later, or from India, or from whatever. So I think essentially, if we start to feel the grip on the global supply chain, sort of, and maybe the economy cools down, people are there's a bit of insecurity, maybe some quarantine are applied across countries that you would not expect them to. People start to freak out a little bit, think that maybe things are not so under control as they are depicted to be. This is sort of the scenario where you want to be ahead of the curve. Okay, so what could a potential preparation concept be about? For sure, the thing is not going to save your life is this rifle, although it has comes with some advantages. So my personal thoughts has led me to believe that having some sort of basic supply stashed in your house could be a good investment. I'm not talking now thousands of Swiss francs invested into food for the next 20 years. I'm talking into basic water and food supply for at least a period of a couple of weeks. Okay, because the symptoms of this virus seem to manifest themselves in a couple of weeks, and that may be a period where you're required to, from one day to another, suspend, or maybe some restriction are applied to your personal lifestyle. And in order not to freak out, sort of, and especially if you have family or elderly people living around you, you don't want to be sort of caught off guard on this one. So from the most likely thing that it could happen is that some quarantines are sort of applied in countries here as well, following some outbreaks. Economic activity is limited, maybe supplies are disrupted, and you cannot really get the comfort that you're used to. But you don't want to freak out, you want to have sort of a plan B. Probably some sort of consumption goods will be available, but not maybe in the quantity and in flavor that you're used to. So just to be on the safe side, maybe stash something at home that you can, so that you don't want to be, if something goes wrong at a local regional level, you don't want to suffer from that. Okay, and now is sort of a good time. There is no rush now, so that may be something to consider if you really don't want to spend a lot of money and want to be just on the safe side. Now, for everything that happens beyond this, if the outbreak proves to have more disruptions than just a chilled 2 weeks period at home implies, then what are the scenarios? Okay, and here I'm just really not sure if you can at all prepare for something like this. Okay, I don't think that there is a lot of parallel historical examples that you can take as a reference and say, I'm gonna do it like back then. I mean, we're living in a period where really everything is literally just in time. Everything works with electricity. Everything works on demand via cellular network. So if for some reason the people that say behind this basic infrastructure are required or are unable or unwilling to provide their service, just imagine as food for thought, a situation where you have limited electricity, no Wi-Fi or no network coverage. What do you do? Okay, if you have sort of a basic idea of how to get around these limitations and just not having these commodities and these comforts in your life, this is something that potentially is worth spending 1 or 2 hours just to figuring out what to do. I'm not saying that I have the best answer, but again, you don't need to have the perfect answer, because remember, as with everything, if you're familiar with the term game theory, it all depends on what the competition is doing. Okay, I'm not saying that there's gonna be just a run for life and people killing each other in the streets, but you just, whatever happens, want to be ahead of the curve in terms of who's around you. Okay, and then the good thing is that nowadays people are just so used to comfort and just not having to sort of work hard or put too much effort to get anything that they want. This is a good thing, because if things go south by a margin, and you sort of need to work things out for yourself against maybe some competition of some sort, it's going to be probably weak competition. Okay, urban population nowadays getting really social and everything, and against any sort of violence or any sort of conflict. I mean, you can get around those people easily. If you need to, you may want to think of tools that enable you to apply leverage, okay, to de-escalate conflict for on your advantage, okay. I just try to be really cautious here because it's not any advice to arm to the teeth and just go around like vigilante. I'm just saying that in a situation where there is no electricity, no network coverage, limited food supplies, and people have just never experienced any sort of limitation to their lifestyle in ages, people may just freak out. Okay, they may not accept this. They may not accept this this new situation, and therefore, if for a short period of time until the government goes into sort of organization mode and manages to get things straight, for that short period of time where the disruptions are coming in and the government is not up to speed with a plan, you need to be ahead of the curve, okay? And that's what I still think, that having some sort of self-defense mechanism and just any means to apply sort of to manage to de-escalate conflicts to your advantage, we require maybe some leverage, and that's why maybe it would be a good idea to have some sort of plan B in terms of weaponry. It doesn't by any means require you to go around, as said, armed, but if you have to protect your family, if you have elderly people living in your household, at some point you may need something fast, okay? And you maybe do not want to have a long discussion on it. For, you know, you have to overcome the comfort of other people, and then you may just be required to do something a bit more aggressive than usual for the sake of maintaining maybe the well-being of other people that do not have the luxury, and therefore you may want to get over potential discussions and issues fast. And since people are so weak nowadays, you don't really need to a lot, just a bit something like this, just to convince them that it's the right thing to do. Yeah, I'm just putting my thoughts out there. I mean, for something like this, remember that the government for sure has zero interest of telling you the truth, because it may lead to just a downward spiral that they're unable to control, especially if they already know now that years and years of just policies that are useless require them a long lead time to get up and running in terms of a plan. So it's in the interest of the government, while they figure out what to do, just you know, keep your attention on other things. Have a look at the stock markets and everything that really doesn't make a lot of sense lately. Use this time to just figure out a concept for yourself. First things first, a little stash of some consumables is not a bad idea, and it's a low investment. Moreover, if you're watching this video, probably you're already familiar with guns, and if you have some ammo on the side, it's not a bad investment either in terms of you know, I'm not talking 25 million rounds, 100, 200. If shit goes south and really there is a run for some products that you really need to have before the others or instead of the others, remember you need a mean of leverage, and you just want to be prepared for when that happens. It's too early to say now anything. I mean, in terms of what will happen. Strangely enough, this virus is, it seems to affect only China in a magnitude that is unheard of in other places where the virus has spread, but doesn't seem to be so deadly. That's very strange, and I highly suspect that China is not managing this well, and this is getting out of hand for them compared to what they hoped to achieve by today. If you have a look at the traffic statistics, pollution statistics, energy consumption statistics in China, you can probably tell that this thing is causing more disruptions that the media is telling you. And it's just a matter of time until the global supply chain takes a dent. And as with everything like domino, when the first domino falls, it's just like a chain reaction. So by the time the chain reaction happens, you don't want to be caught off guard, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You're going to be way more relaxed and able to think of a strategy if you already know that you can survive or sort of live with a decent comfort over the next few days when really the disruption potentially really affect the community around you. So yeah, I'm going to follow this thing closely. And if, of course, I'm not the leading speaker on this topic, but if there are some things that maybe have some implication on a setup or on a preparation that involves guns and gears, of course, that's what I come in. And as usual, when you know that when shit hits the fan, it's useless to think that you can rely on governmental agencies, especially now. Probably in the short term, impossible. Mid to long term, probably yes, it's in the interest of everyone and it's going to happen. But in the short term, you're probably on your own. Again, if you think that you're in a situation where you need to care for other people, like a family, their hope is just not enough. Then you need to have a plan B that can be implemented swiftly. And it doesn't cost you anything, okay? Having a plan B and not using it is, as with many things, better than, not having anything when you actually need it the most, okay? Then you're gonna really cry. So yeah, let me know if you have some thoughts on potential preparation hints and tips in the region of Central Europe. It would be interesting to know what your thoughts are. And yeah, have a nice Sunday.